Ambassador Alara Vance had dreamed of this moment her entire life. The great station floated before her ship like a metal flower blooming in the darkness of space. They called it the Eternal Gathering, and it was home to over 4,000 species from across the galaxy. Today, humanity would finally join them. "Docking in 5 minutes," her pilot said. Alara straightened her uniform and looked at her reflection in the window. She was 52 years old, with gray streaks in her dark hair and lines around her eyes from years of smiling. She had spent 30 years preparing for this day. Humanity had finally built ships that could cross the stars, and now they would take their place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. The ship shuddered as it connected to the station. Alara took a deep breath and walked toward the airlock. Her team of 6 diplomats followed close behind. The doors opened with a soft hiss. The greeting hall was enormous. Thousands of beings filled the space, creatures of every shape and size imaginable. Some floated in the air. Others crawled on many legs. A few were made of light itself. Alara had studied images of alien species for years, but seeing them in person took her breath away. She stepped forward with her arms open in a gesture of welcome. "Greetings," she said, her voice amplified by the translator device on her collar. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we are honored to finally meet you." Silence. The beings nearest to her stepped backward. A group of tall, blue-skinned creatures turned and walked away without a word. Something that looked like a floating jellyfish changed color from bright yellow to dark gray and drifted toward the exit. Alara felt her smile falter. "Is something wrong?" No one answered. Within moments, the great hall was nearly empty. Only a few species remained, and they kept their distance, watching humanity with expressions that Alara could not read. A small creature approached. It walked on 4 legs and had fur the color of copper. Its large eyes blinked rapidly as it spoke. "You are the Earth beings?" "Yes," Alara said. "We are humans." The creature made a sound that the translator turned into a sigh. "I am Diplomat Kever of the Morth people. I have been assigned to assist you." "Assist us with what? What just happened? Where did everyone go?" Kever looked around nervously. "They are afraid." "Afraid? Of us?" Alara almost laughed. "We just arrived. We have done nothing wrong." "It is not what you have done," Kever said quietly. "It is where you come from." Alara felt a chill run down her spine. "I do not understand." Kever led them to a small meeting room. The walls were plain metal, and the furniture was simple. It felt less like a diplomatic welcome and more like a quarantine cell. "Your planet," Kever began, "exists in a region of space that we call the Shroud. No species has entered the Shroud in over 3 billion years. It is forbidden. By whom? By the oldest ones, the Velthari. Alara had heard this name in intercepted transmissions. The Velthari were ancient beyond imagination, a species that had existed since before most stars were born. They rarely spoke to younger races and never interfered in galactic politics. Why would they forbid travel to our region of space? Alara asked. Kever's fur stood on end. Because something terrible is there. Something that should never be disturbed. When we detected your ships leaving the Shroud, the entire Concord went into emergency session. Many wanted to destroy your vessels before you could reach us. Destroy us? We came in peace. You do not understand. Kever leaned closer, and Alara could see real terror in his eyes. The Shroud was created to contain something. A prison built by the Velthari and the ancient coalition billions of years ago. Your planet, the one you call Earth, sits at the center of that prison. Alara's team exchanged worried glances. One of her diplomats, a young man named Thomas, spoke up. That is impossible. We have lived on Earth for millions of years. We have never found any prison. That is what frightens them most. Keva whispered. The prison was designed so that no intelligent life could ever evolve there. The Valkyrie made sure of it. Extinction events, cosmic radiation, hostile conditions. Everything was arranged to keep that world dead and empty. But we survived, Ilara said slowly. Yes, you survived everything. Every disaster. Every extinction. You should not exist. Nothing should exist where you come from. And yet, here you are. The room fell silent. Ilara felt the weight of those words pressing down on her chest. She thought of human history, all the times their species had nearly died out. The ice ages, the plagues, the wars. They had always found a way to continue. What is in this prison? She asked. Keva shook his head. I do not know. Only the Valkyrie know the full truth, and they have not spoken to younger races in 800 million years. Then we need to speak with them. That is not possible. The Valkyrie do not. A chime interrupted him. Keva looked at a device on his wrist, and his copper fur turned pale. His eyes went wide with shock. What is it? Ilara demanded. The Valkyrie, Keva said, his voice barely a whisper. They have sent a message to the Concord. For the first time in 800 million years, they wish to speak. To whom? Keva looked up at her with an expression of pure terror. To you. Only to you. They want to meet humanity. Ilara stood in that small room, surrounded by her team, millions of light years from home. She thought of Earth, her beautiful blue planet spinning in the darkness. She thought of her parents, her children, the billions of people going about their lives with no idea what was happening out here among the stars. What secret did their world hold? What had they been living on top of all this time? She straightened her spine and lifted her chin. Whatever the truth was, humanity would face it. They always had. Tell the Valkyrie we accept, she said. We will meet them. Keva stared at her as if she had just signed her own death sentence. Perhaps she had. But Ilara Vance had not come all this way to run from answers. The stars held a secret about Earth, and she intended to learn what it was. The journey to the Valkyrie homeworld took 3 weeks. During that time, Ilara learned what true isolation felt like. The escort ships that traveled with them kept a distance of 10,000 kilometers at all times. No one would come closer. She spent her days reading everything the Concord had shared about the Valkyrie. The information was thin and filled with gaps. They were silicon-based life forms, born in the hearts of dying stars. They had existed for nearly 4 billion years. They had helped build the galactic Concord, but had withdrawn from it long before most current species had evolved. They were considered gods by some civilizations, and demons by others. We are approaching, the pilot announced. Ilara walked to the observation deck and stopped breathing. The Valkyrie homeworld was not a planet. It was a star. Or rather, it had been a star once. Now it was something else entirely. The great sphere of light had been transformed into a living structure, its surface covered with patterns that shifted and moved like thoughts given form. It glowed with a soft golden light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. They converted their own sun into an archive, Thomas whispered beside her. The entire history of the galaxy is stored in there. Their ship landed on a platform that extended from the star's surface. The heat should have killed them instantly, but some kind of field kept them safe. When Ilara stepped outside, she felt nothing but a gentle warmth on her skin. A figure waited for them. The Valkyrie was beautiful and terrifying. It stood 3 meters tall, its body made of crystal that glowed from within. It had no face in the human sense, just smooth surfaces that reflected light in impossible ways. When it moved, Ilara heard music, as if its very existence created sound. You are the Earth children, it said. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. vibrating in Alara's bones. "We are humanity," she replied. "Thank you for agreeing to meet us." We did not agree. We demanded. "You have questions. We have answers. But first, you must understand what you are asking." The Valkyrie raised one crystalline arm, and the world changed. Alara was no longer standing on the platform. She was floating in space, watching galaxies spin below her. She understood instantly that this was not real, that she was experiencing a shared memory. But it felt more real than anything she had ever known. 3.2 billion years ago, the Valkyrie's voice said. The galaxy was young, and we were not alone. She saw them then. The primordials. They were vast beyond comprehension. Beings of pure thought and energy that stretched across light years. They moved through space like shadows, and wherever they went, civilizations burned. Alara watched planets die. She watched entire species scream as their minds were devoured. She watched stars go dark as the primordials fed. They were not evil in the way you understand evil, the Valkyrie continued. They were simply hungry. They consumed thought, devoured consciousness, fed on the minds of lesser beings. To them, we were food. Nothing more. The memory shifted. Alara saw the ancient coalition forming. The Valkyrie and dozens of other species, all standing together against the darkness. She saw battles that lasted thousands of years, weapons that cracked the fabric of space itself, sacrifices that left entire regions of the galaxy empty and dead. We won, the Valkyrie said. But we could not destroy them. The primordials were beyond death. So we did the only thing we could. We imprisoned them. Alara saw it then. A young planet, blue and green, spinning in a quiet corner of the galaxy. Earth, her Earth. She watched as the Valkyrie wrapped it in layers of protection, buried the primordials deep in its core, and sealed them away. We designed the prison carefully. The planet would be hostile. Life would struggle. No intelligent species would ever evolve to dig deep enough to find them. We created extinction events every few million years to reset any progress. We filled the system with radiation. We did everything possible to keep that world empty. The memory faded, and Alara found herself back on the platform, tears running down her cheeks. But we evolved anyway, she whispered. Yes. The Valkyrie's voice was heavy with something that might have been sorrow. You survived the ice. You survived the fire. You survived the rocks from the sky and the poison in the air. Every trap we set, you escaped. Every extinction we designed, you endured. You should have died 1,000 times, and yet you grew stronger. Why? Alara asked. How? The Valkyrie was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was different, filled with something Alara had not expected. Fear. That is what we need to know. You evolved on top of a prison holding the most dangerous beings in the history of the galaxy. You built cities on their cage. You dug mines and drilled wells and split atoms, all while standing on their sleeping forms. And somehow, you never woke them. The Valkyrie leaned closer, and Alara saw her own reflection in its crystal surface. Or perhaps you did wake them. Perhaps they have been awake for a very long time. Perhaps they have been watching you, helping you, guiding you. The question we must ask, Ambassador Vance, is simple. The golden light of the star world dimmed, and Alara felt cold for the first time since arriving. What did your species find beneath the surface of your world? What have you been keeping secret? And why, after millions of years of silence, did you suddenly develop the technology to leave your planet and reach the stars? Alara opened her mouth to answer, but no words came, because deep in her heart, in a place she had never examined closely, she knew the Valkyrie was right. Humanity had secrets. Old secrets. Dark secrets. and she was beginning to wonder if she had ever really known her own species at all. The year was 2089, and Dr. Sarah Chen was about to make the greatest discovery in human history. Her team had spent 5 years building the Deep Core Explorer, a machine designed to drill deeper than any technology had ever gone before. They had passed through rock and magma, through layers of iron and nickel, going down and down until their instruments stopped making sense at 1,800 miles beneath the surface. They found the chamber. "That is impossible," Sarah whispered, staring at the data on her screen. The chamber was vast, larger than any natural formation should be. But that was not what made her hands shake. The walls were covered in patterns, geometric shapes that hurt the eye to look at. They were not random. They were not natural. They were a language written in mathematics itself. "Dr. Chun," her assistant called out with a trembling voice. "Something is happening." The patterns on the walls began to glow. A sound filled the chamber, a hum that Sarah felt in her teeth, in her bones, in her thoughts. And then, for the first time in billions of years, something spoke. It did not use words. It used feelings, images, memories. Sarah saw herself as a child, learning to walk. She saw her grandmother teaching her to read. She saw every moment of love and joy and wonder she had ever experienced, reflected back at her like a mirror, and she understood. The thing in the darkness was not angry. It was not hostile. It was greeting her. It was saying hello. The governments of the world formed Project Prometheus within a month. Every major nation sent representatives. Every resource was dedicated to understanding what lay beneath the earth. For the next 250 years, humanity's greatest secret was kept hidden from the stars. Alara Vance learned all of this on her journey back to Earth. The message had come through classified channels, encrypted so heavily that it took her ship's computer 3 days to decode it. What she read changed everything she thought. She knew about her species. The primordials were not what the Velthori believed. They had not been imprisoned. They had been wounded, broken, nearly destroyed by the ancient war. They had crawled to Earth not as prisoners, but as refugees. They had hidden inside the planet to heal, to recover, to survive. And in exchange for shelter, they had given humanity gifts. The documents explained everything. Why humans could survive radiation that killed other species. Why human DNA adapted faster than any other known genome. Why humans had instincts and intuitions that seemed almost supernatural. The pattern recognition that let them see faces in clouds and hear music in wind. The stubborn refusal to die, no matter how impossible the odds. These were not accidents of evolution. These were gifts from the beings below. The primordials had woven themselves into humanity's very existence. They had made humans survivors. They had made them special. Humanity was not the jailer. Humanity was the child. When Alara's ship landed on Earth, she was taken immediately to a facility in the Antarctic. The elevator ride down lasted 45 minutes. When the doors opened, she stepped into a cathedral. The chamber was miles wide, its ceiling lost in darkness above. In the center, something moved. It was impossible to see clearly, like trying to look at the sun through closed eyes. It was vast and ancient and utterly alien, and yet somehow, impossibly, it felt like home. General Marcus Webb stood beside her. He was an old man with kind eyes and a voice that had commanded armies. Now he spoke softly, like a man standing in church. "We've been talking to them for over 2 centuries, he said. "They are not what the galaxy believes." "And what are they?" Alara asked. "Gardeners." The general smiled sadly. "They traveled from galaxy to galaxy, seeding life on barren worlds. They created billions of species across the universe. They watched civilizations rise and fall, always nurturing, always protecting. They were not destroyers. They were parents, But the Velthari said, the Velthari lied. Or perhaps they believed their own lies after so long. The general shook his head. The ancient coalition attacked the primordials out of fear. They saw beings of immense power and assumed the worst. They struck first. They nearly succeeded in killing them. The war that followed was not conquest. It was self-defense. Elara watched the shape moving in the darkness. She could feel it now, a presence in her mind, warm and gentle and infinitely patient. It did not speak in words, but she understood anyway that it was grateful. It was proud. It had watched humanity grow from simple animals to star travelers, and it had loved every moment. "They are almost healed," the general said. "After 3 billion years, they are ready to wake fully, to leave Earth and continue their journey across the universe. But the galaxy thinks they are monsters. The Velthari will try to stop them. They will try to destroy Earth." "Yes," the general's face grew serious. "They have already begun mobilizing their fleets. When the Concord learns that we have been harboring the primordials, they will come for us. And we will have to make a choice." Elara felt the primordials' attention focus on her. It showed her images, possibilities, futures that branched and split like rivers. In one, humanity stood aside and let the primordials face the galaxy alone. In another, humanity fought beside them and burned the stars. But there was a third path. A harder path. A path that required courage and sacrifice and faith. "They are asking us," Elara realized. "They want to know what we will do when the galaxy comes to kill them. Not just what we will do," the general said quietly. "They want to know what we will choose for the galaxy. They will accept whatever we decide. They trust us that much." Elara closed her eyes. She thought of the Velthari, ancient and afraid, clinging to a lie they had told themselves for billions of years. She thought of the thousands of species that had fled from her in fear. She thought of her own people, living their lives above, unaware of the miracles sleeping beneath their feet. What would humanity choose? In the darkness below, something vast and ancient waited for her answer. The message spread across the galaxy like fire. The Velthari, who had remained silent for 800 million years, broadcast on every frequency, to every corner of the galactic concord. Their words were simple and terrifying. "The wound is waking. The Earth species has been harboring the ancient enemy. They must be stopped. Sterilize the system. Sterilize it now." Within hours, 200 species answered the call. Ships began moving toward a quiet region of space that had been forbidden for billions of years. They moved toward Earth. Elara stood in the command center deep beneath the Antarctic, watching the displays that showed the approaching fleet. The numbers were overwhelming. 10,000 warships, weapons that could crack planets, species that had evolved for combat since before Earth existed. "We have perhaps 6 days before they reach the solar system," General Webb said. "Our defenses will not hold for long." "Then we need more time," Elara replied. The leaders of Earth had gathered in this room. Presidents and generals, scientists and philosophers. They had all learned the truth now. They had all seen what lived beneath their feet. And they were all afraid. "We could give them up," someone suggested. A politician from a country Elara did not recognize. "The primordials. If we handed them over, perhaps the Concord would spare us." The temperature in the room dropped. Elara felt the primordials' attention shift, not with anger, but with sadness. It understood. It had always known this moment might come. "You would betray the beings who made us what we are?" General Webb asked quietly. "They gave us everything. Our survival, our strength, our very existence. They also made us targets," the politician shot back. "The galaxy is coming to destroy us because of them." "The galaxy was already afraid of us," Elara said. "Before they knew about the primordials, they ran from us. They marked our entire region of space as forbiddance. They tried to prevent us from ever existing. This is not about the primordials. This is about fear. And you cannot satisfy fear by giving it what it wants. It only grows hungrier. The room fell silent. Alara stepped forward. I have spent the last month speaking with the primordials. I have seen their memories, felt their thoughts, understood their nature. They are not the monsters the Volturi described. They never were. She told them the truth. All of it. The seeding of life across galaxies. The unprovoked attack by the ancient coalition. The desperate escape to Earth. The billions of years of healing while humanity grew around them. They do not want revenge, she said. They only want to leave. To continue their work. To create life across the universe as they always have. But they will not abandon us. They will not let us be destroyed for the crime of sheltering them. Then we have no choice but to fight, General Webb said. No, Alara shook her head. Fighting is not the only option. There is another way. She explained her plan. It was dangerous. It required perfect timing. And it required something that humanity had never attempted before. Trust. Not trust in weapons or shields or ships. Trust in the truth. The leaders argued for hours. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to flee into the darkness of space and hope the Concord would not follow Dot in the end. They voted. And by a narrow margin, they chose Alara's path. The fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system on the 6th day. Alara stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship. The Unity. It was the largest ship humanity had ever built. But it looked like a toy next to the vessels that now filled the sky. All weapons are locked on Earth, her tactical officer reported. They are preparing to fire. Open a channel, Alara ordered. Broadcast to every ship, every station, every planet in the Concord. I want everyone to hear this. The channel opened. Alara looked into the camera and spoke. This is Ambassador Alara Vance of Earth. We know why you have come. You believe we harbor monsters. You believe we are a threat. You believe that destroying us will make you safe. She paused, letting her words sink in. You are wrong. The beings beneath our world are not your enemies. They never were. 3 billion years ago, your ancestors attacked them without cause, nearly destroyed them out of fear, and then spent millennia telling themselves they were heroes. But lies do not become truth simply because they are old. The fleet did not respond. But they did not fire either. They were listening. We are not going to fight you, Alara continued. We are not going to run. We are going to show you the truth. All of it. Every memory. Every moment. The real history of the war your ancestors started, and the lies they have been hiding ever since. She looked at General Webb, who nodded once. If after you see the truth you still wish to destroy us, we will not stop you. But you will do it with open eyes, knowing exactly what you are killing and why. Beneath the earth, the primordials stirred. They understood. They accepted Dot, and for the first time in 3 billion years, they prepared to speak to the galaxy that had tried to murder them. The ships waited. The weapons stayed charged. The universe held its breath. Then, slowly, something began to rise from the earth. Light poured from the planet's surface, reaching up toward the stars like a hand extended in greeting. The primordials were waking, not to fight, not to destroy, but to remember. And they were going to make sure everyone remembered with them. The light rose from Earth like a sunrise in reverse. It climbed through the atmosphere, through the darkness of space, through the formations of warships that had come to end humanity forever. And when it reached them, something extraordinary happened. Every being in the fleet saw the truth, thought it was not a message or a broadcast. It was memory itself, shared directly from mind to mind across the vast distance of space. The primordials showed them everything. They showed the ancient galaxies, young and wild, filled with empty worlds waiting for life. They showed the primordials traveling between stars, planting seeds of existence on barren rocks, nurturing the first cells, guiding evolution with patient hands. They showed civilizations rising, species growing, consciousness blooming across the cosmos like flowers in an endless garden. They showed the Veltari, young and frightened, watching the primordials work and misunderstanding what they saw. They showed the fear spreading, the lies growing, the coalition forming in secret. They showed the first attack, unprovoked and devastating, weapons of terrible power striking without warning. They showed the war that followed. Not a war of conquest, but a desperate fight for survival. The primordials had no desire to kill, but they defended themselves. Galaxies burned. Stars died. Billions perished on both sides of a conflict that should never have begun. And then they showed the end. The primordials, broken and dying, crawling to a tiny blue world in a quiet corner of the galaxy, burying themselves deep in its core, going to sleep and hoping to heal while the universe forgot them. The memory ended, and silence fell across the fleet. On the bridge of the Unity, Alara watched the warships through tear-filled eyes. She had experienced the vision too. She had felt the primordials' pain, their loss, their grief for the children they had created, only to watch them turn against their creators. "The fleet is holding position," her tactical officer whispered. No movement, no communication. They were processing. Every being on every ship was trying to understand what they had just learned. 3 billion years of history, rewritten in a single moment. Then the Veltari spoke. Their voice came from everywhere at once, broadcast across the system with the same power they had used to condemn Earth. But this time, the words were different. "This is false. These memories are corrupted. The Earth beings have been manipulated. Do not believe." Another voice cut through the transmission. It was deep and vast and older than stars. "You know it is not false." The primordials were speaking now, their thoughts translated into words that every species could understand. "We remember you, young ones. We remember when you were just crystals forming in the heart of your star. We helped you grow. We celebrated when you achieved thought. We were proud when you joined the community of minds. And we wept when you turned against us." The Veltari's response was filled with something Alara had never heard from them before. Shame. "We were afraid. You were so powerful. You thought we would consume you as you would have consumed others. You judged us by the standards of your own fear. And when you realized your mistake, when you saw what you had done, you could not face it. So you lied. To the galaxy. To yourselves. For 3 billion years, you have told yourselves you were saviors. But you were only frightened children, striking at shadows. The fleet remained still. Weapons stayed powered but unfired. The Concorde was listening, truly listening, for the first time. "We do not ask for revenge," the primordials continued. "We do not demand punishment. We ask only for truth. Remember what really happened. Remember who we were. Remember who you are." Alara watched as one by one, the warships began to power down their weapons. The first was a small vessel from a species she did not recognize. Then another. Then a dozen. Then 100. The Veltari made one last attempt. The threat remains. Even if the past is different than we believed, the power they hold is the power to create life. Alara's voice cut through the transmission. The power to nurture civilizations? The power to wait 3 billion years for healing instead of seeking revenge? If that is the threat you fear, then you have forgotten what it means to be alive. She stepped forward, her voice carrying across the galaxy. We are humanity. We grew up on a world you tried to keep dead. We survived everything you threw at us. And we did it because we are the children of the ones you tried to kill. Their strength is our strength. Their patience is our patience. Their love of life is our love of life. We are not your enemy. We never were. We are your family. The fleet did not fire. The weapons powered down completely. And slowly, carefully, the ships began to turn away. The primordials rose fully from the earth then. They were beautiful, beings of light and thought that stretched across space like wings made of starlight. They looked down at the blue planet that had sheltered them for so long, and they sent one final message. You were never our prison, children of Earth. You were our promise. Everything we hoped to create, you became. Everything we dreamed life could be, you are. What you do now is your choice. What you become is your decision. But know this, we will never forget you. And wherever we travel across the universe, we will carry you with us. Then they were gone, rising into the darkness between galaxies, traveling toward new worlds and new possibilities. Their work continued. The endless garden grew. Alara stood on the bridge, watching the stars. Behind her, her crew was crying. Some with relief, some with wonder, some with grief for a loss they could not name. What happens now? Thomas asked quietly. Alara thought about the answer for a long time. She thought about the galactic concord, fractured and confused, its oldest truths revealed as lies. She thought about the Velthari, retreating into their dying star to face their shame alone. She thought about humanity, standing on a world that had never been a prison, but a nursery. The primordials left us something, she said finally. In those last memories they shared, there were coordinates, locations of worlds they seeded with life across the universe. Civilizations we have never met. Species we cannot imagine. Our brothers and sisters scattered across the cosmos. She turned to face her crew. We have a choice. We can stay here, remain part of a concord that feared and rejected us. Or we can become something new. Explorers, shepherds, children of the deep, searching for our family among the stars. The crew looked at her with hope in their eyes. Hope and determination, and the stubborn refusal to give up that had always defined humanity. Plot a course, Alara ordered. Let us see what our parents left for us to find. The Unity turned away from the fleet, away from the politics and fear of the galactic concord, toward the unknown darkness where life waited to be discovered. Behind them, Earth spun on in silence, a quiet blue world that had held the greatest secret in the universe. Not a prison, not a cage, a cradle dot, and now the children had grown up. The children had learned to walk among the stars. The children had chosen mercy over revenge and truth over comfort. Alara smiled as the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel. The galaxy had called them a dark secret. Perhaps they had been. But secrets, once spoken, became stories. And humanity's story was just beginning.